So the famous atheist Hitchens asked the question, and I'm slightly paraphrasing, but it's the same basic idea. What moral thing can a Christian do that an atheist cannot do? And I mean, typically I stay out of the whole online arguments and stuff because I think they're kind of stupid and they don't really achieve anything. It's just a bunch of people who get all worked up and, oh, we won that one, or the other group says, oh, we won that one, and then if they didn't win, then they just kind of have this whole drawn out. It typically it's pointless, and so I really don't engage. But I was watching a video by a Christian apologist and teacher, I guess, Mike Winger. I think he's actually a pastor. And he was looking at this, and I thought, it might be good to kind of throw my own 2 cents in there. So what moral thing can a Christian do that an atheist can't do? Well, here's the thing. The basic idea of what he's getting at is that you don't need God to do good things. That you can, that's not, morals aren't exclusive to the Christian. And I understand what he's trying to say, but the problem with the question is that it misrepresents Christianity, and ultimately it's kind of irrelevant. I know that he really thought he had a one-up on people, but really it was an irrelevant question to ask. Christianity is not about earning it. It's not about doing enough good. It's not about I can do more things than you, or that somehow, something like that. Although it should be said that religious people do typically give more to fundraisers and do more charity stuff and that kind of stuff. But that's kind of, once again, irrelevant. Christianity is not about earning it. It's not about doing enough good. It's about trusting in Jesus. That's what Christianity is about. It's not about being a perfect person. It's not about having all the answers. It's not about, and once again, just because you ask a question that somebody doesn't know the answer to doesn't mean that you won. It just means that they don't know the answer. Let's say, for instance, I do in biology, and I ask you a question about biology that you don't know the answer to. Does that mean that, whatever my point is, that I'm definitely right? Well, no, not necessarily. Let's say, for the sake of this argument, let's say evolution is not true. Evolution never happened, okay? And so then I give a question that you don't know the answer to, and I say that proves that evolution is true. Well, no, it doesn't. It proves that I don't know the answer. you kind of get what I'm. Hope you get what I'm saying there. So the first problem with this is that it's completely irrelevant and misrepresents Christianity. The second problem is something that Mike Winger actually brought up in his video, and the greatest command, the greatest moral imperative, the greatest good thing you can do is love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And that is something that an atheist is incapable of doing, because if they were doing that, then they wouldn't be an atheist. So there's that. But then there's a third issue that I think is kind of might trump the other two things, and that's this. Without God, there is no ultimate standard of good. So what moral thing can a Christian do that an atheist can't? What is morals? What are morals? What is good? And I think that kind of is a bigger issue than the other things. Without God, you're left with the issue of, is there such a thing as good? Is there such a thing as morals? There's some things that you might be okay with and some things you might not, but here's the problem with that. Emotions in society change. In America, for instance, slavery was legal, but now it's not legal. Now that it's not legal, there are more slaves than there ever have been in human history. So you kind of have to stop and say, well, hold on, is it right or is it wrong? And how do we know? Evidently, some people don't have any qualms about it. And then that takes us to the issue like homosexuality. Some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, and they both take their emotions or whatever into account. So with that being said, society used to condemn homosexuality. Now it doesn't. So what is good? What is the standard? If it's my own personal emotions, our emotions are oftentimes manipulated. We oftentimes feel different at different times. There's that. Society, obviously, I already pointed out that changes. If we're talking about opinions and beliefs often change. When I was younger, I used to think things that I don't necessarily agree with now. And even if you still believe the basic idea of, like, for instance, the Bible, you can look at the same book in a different way. And I think that kind of clarifies that. And so then that's the issue of, are we nothing more than evolved? Is our conscience, sorry. Is our conscience nothing more than an evolved trigger? What makes something good or bad? Just because I personally have a qualm about it. So that means if I have a problem with slavery, then that just means that I can't own a slave. That doesn't mean that I can force you to not own a slave if you don't think slavery is wrong. See what I mean? That's my own, unless I can strong arm you into following my standard of morals. But what makes my standard right? How do I know that my children after me, for instance, will say slavery really isn't that big of a deal? Unless you're going to obviously make the claim that every child always agrees with their parent on everything. Kind of not something you have much leverage there on. So, where do these morals come from? What is good? Is lying wrong, or is it not wrong? What if it saves somebody? What if it, see what I mean? Like, so is there an ultimate standard? Is there what is good and what's wrong, not good? What about things like pornography? Is that wrong? What about cheating? Is cheating really wrong if the person doesn't find out about it? See what I mean? There's a lot of things. What if I'm just thinking about the person? Is that necessarily wrong? See what I mean? There's a lot of little gray areas, and it's like, well, without an absolute standard, there's no way of knowing that except for what I personally think, and a lot of times that's based on the time. For instance, even if you are against adultery and you are in a compromising situation, let's just say, you might justify it at that time because it feels real good. Well, I was just lying to myself. So how do you know you aren't lying to yourself now? Like, that's just it doesn't really stick. And you have to keep coming back to this issue of, where do the morals come from? And I could say more, but I think you can kind of follow it yourself and just think about what I'm saying. So here's a final kind of inquiry about this. Why should I submit to anyone else's idea of good unless they are the creator and have inherently given me the idea of good and bad? If our conscience, not consciousness, conscience, I don't know why I keep having a problem with that. If our conscience is something that's God-given, then even though we may have little distinctions, we can universally agree that some things are wrong. Going and taking somebody else's stuff, that's probably wrong. Going and killing people. So once again, if we all have this idea of what's right and wrong hidden within us, then where did that come from? And if it's nothing more than an evolved trigger, then what does that mean for morals? Is there such a thing as morals? Let's say, for instance, the atheist is right. Well, yes, absolutely, you can do good things, but why should you? What is a good thing? Oh, well, just to be a decent human being. Okay, well, let's think about that. Does giving money to an organization make you a decent human being? Not necessarily. Let's say, for instance, there's someone like Adolf Hitler who gives to charity. See what I mean? It's just a problem that I don't think Hitchens really thought out. Now, typically, like I said, I would just kind of drop it and move on. It makes no difference to me if I convince you, and it makes no difference to me if you think that Hitchens is, the smartest person in the world. I personally think that he's not that smart. I think that he's kind of arrogant and cocky, but, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. What difference does it make to me what you think? What difference does it make to you what I think? But I think that when you're going to get into these online debates, which I, once again, think are really stupid, you really ought to go past, this is what I want to believe, and I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to listen to any reason. I'm not going to, think twice about my ideas. No, I'm just going to, this is just how it is. And everybody who doesn't agree with me is a moron. Maybe a healthier way would be to look at, how can I learn from this? Are they right? Just starting out there. But anyways, so if you don't agree with me, I don't really care.